For better picture quality, adjust tracking control on your VCR.
Ignition.
Actually, if mom doesn't try it, not even so far, no.
Is this what lies in store for us in the new millennium? A massive collision with an extraterrestrial body, wiping out life as we know it in an instant? Or are there other dangers looming on the horizon? A major earthquake shattering entire cities and changing the map of the world forever. Will there be a catastrophic eruption from one or several of Earth's many dormant volcanoes, covering entire states in a deep layer of ash? Or will nature unleash its other destructive forces, like typhoons and hurricanes, smashing everything in its path? Or will nature sit back and watch while we ourselves destroy each other in one terrible holocaust of chemical and nuclear warfare? The fact of the matter is, prophecies from ancient times to today have told of a major cataclysmic event to come. A disaster that will wipe out major regions on Earth, but leave mankind with enough resources to survive and enter an era of unprecedented peace and happiness. But what about our own times? Can modern science assist us? Can we in some way be prepared for what is about to happen? Where will technology take us? How far will medicine go in pushing the boundaries of life? Will new drugs wipe out the scourge of cancer and AIDS? And where is technology in all this? Can it help prepare our children and ourselves for what is to come? Will our children have a planet to live in? What does the future have in store for us? One of the oldest and most enduring civilizations to grace Earth arose in the delta of the Nile in Egypt some 3,000 years before the birth of Christ. A strong man known as Menes conquered the delta and unified it with the upper and lower valleys of the Nile. Thus, the twin kingdoms of Egypt were born. It became the cradle of our modern civilization. Powerful pharaohs arose who expanded the territory and created an empire that stretched far into Africa and the Middle East. Meanwhile, the royal court of Thebes developed a culture and sophistication unprecedented in human history. Egypt's religion was rooted in an all-consuming cult of the dead. To protect the journey of royals into the underworld, Egyptian architects created huge stone pyramids. The largest of these is the Pyramid of Khufu, also known as Cheops. Built in 2500 BC, it is the largest in the world, nearly 500 feet high. Inside, scholars made a startling discovery. The interior of the pyramid is pierced by several shafts, one of which contains a timeline carved in stone. With astounding accuracy, Egyptian craftsmen wrote a blueprint of mankind, each foot representing 100 years in time. These hieroglyphics have been interpreted to depict milestones marking the exodus of the Jews, the birth and crucifixion of Christ, and even both world wars. The line abruptly ends at the year 2000. Apparently, the Egyptian priests believed that a great catastrophe would bring an end to time. How did the ancient Egyptians arrive at such knowledge? What is the source of their amazing civilization? Indeed, how could they develop the technology to build such massive structures in relatively so short a time, with such primitive means? According to some scholars, the answer lies in the Great Pyramid itself. The shafts which connected the burial chambers to the outside world have been constructed in a very specific way. In fact, the shafts line up perfectly with the constellations of Ursa Minor, as well as with the most visible star group of all, the Belt of Orion. What do these mysterious alignments mean? Are they a gateway to the stars? Some scientists have gone as far as to suggest that the Egyptians were in touch with alien civilizations who provided the necessary know-how and technology for Egyptian culture and architecture. They theorized that the Egyptians were truly the emissaries of gods from outer space, privy to secrets and predictions of the future beyond our modern understanding. Could this be true? Did the Egyptians know something of our future that we do not? Just as the Egyptian civilization began to flourish, a group of Central American Indians known as the Mayans settled in agricultural villages in the Yucatan Peninsula of what is today Mexico. By 300 AD, they too had developed a magnificent civilization in cities like Chichen Itza, Palenque, Tikal, and Copan. The Mayans also built pyramids which often bear an amazing resemblance to the pyramids of ancient Egypt. The Mayans lived by an advanced mathematical calendar called the Tzolkin. It also contained a number of prophecies. This sacred calendar was carved on round slabs and can still be found on stelae and on temples throughout Mexico. The Mayans believed that there is a universal harmony to everything in life, that all situations and life forms are connected to each other by virtue of waves of energy. According to the calendar, the Earth will transition out of the range of wave patterns and encounter a cataclysmic event which will lead to a new era. This event will supposedly take place in 2012 AD. This great catastrophe will mark the beginning of a new period of 26,000 years. The Mayan time calendar is remarkably similar to the actual electromagnetic flow of waves around the Earth, discovered only in modern times. Is this a clue? The Mayan prophecy is remarkably similar to the one of the Pyramid of Cheops. Can there be a connection? Were the Mayans in touch with the same extraterrestrial sources of information that inspired the Egyptians? Whatever the answer may be, the Mayans held forth the message that the great catastrophe would lead to a new frequency of life with waves of great love and harmony. Much of the Mayan prophecy is reflected in the culture of another group of Indians who have lived in the American Southwest for thousands of years. The Hopi Indians' sole aim is to live in harmony with nature. They never fought in the Indian Wars of the 19th century and preferred to remain true to their name and nature, the peaceful people. They believe that the Earth has passed through 3 different phases and that today we are in the 4th world, which will lead to Purification Day. Scholars believe that the Hopi Purification Day is similar to our Judgment Day. There is thus a remarkable consensus across cultures that we are heading towards a major event in human history. Capharnaum on the shores of Lake Galilee. 2,000 years ago, a man from Nazareth preached here, speaking of a heavenly kingdom that awaited all who followed him. His name was Jesus, son of Joseph, and he changed the moral foundation of Western civilization forever. According to the Gospels, Jesus often spoke of a new world, a new kingdom on earth, on the heels of a series of disasters.
And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass. But the end is not yet, for nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places.
The most detailed description of the end of time is written in the book of Revelations, also known as the Apocalypse, the last book of the modern New Testament. According to Christian tradition, it was written by the Apostle St. John during his exile on the Isle of Patmos in 95 AD. While some scholars believe that the Apocalypse was written specifically for the contemporary world of the 1st century as a prophecy for the imminent fall of the Roman world, Christians believe that it is a description of events that will accompany the end of time and the second coming of Christ. According to some, the revelations can be interpreted to mean that today we are living in a state of grace, albeit a shallow and deceiving one. In our era, we will witness the emergence of a new Antichrist, or as John described it.
And he deceives those who dwell on the earth, telling them to make an image to the beast. He was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast and cause as many as would not worship the image to be killed.
It is then that John foresees the rise of God's wrath. The wrath of God is represented by the appearance of 4 horsemen, the first being the white horse of war, the second the red horse who destroys peace, the third the black horse of famine, and the fourth the pale horse of death. During this time of great upheaval, the Antichrist will help the restoration of the Temple of the Jews. Today, the temple area is dominated by the Mosque of the Dome of the Rock, a holy area to Muslims, Christians, and Jews alike, for it marks the spot on which Abraham was called to sacrifice his son Isaac. Of the Jewish temple built in the time of Jesus, only the Western Wall remains. It is today the holiest site of Judaism, where Jews come to pray. The restoration of this temple would be a very joyous event for Jews, but it would certainly lead to a major conflict with the Arabs.
And he gathered them together into a place called, in the Hebrew tongue, Armageddon. And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth.
We can pinpoint the very place where this last great apocalyptic battle would take place. Megiddo, the root of the word Armageddon. Megiddo has been a battlefield since the time of Ramses II, since it is located on the strategic crossroads between east and west, north and south. Scholars have interpreted John's revelations to indicate that the battle will be fought between an army from the north, 200 million in strength, with the 10 armies of the Antichrist. It will be the war to end all wars. The carnage will be dreadful. But in the end, the forces of good will prevail. The Antichrist will be defeated. The world will turn their allegiance to Christ. The world will enter 1,000 years of peace and harmony, marked by the second coming.
When all the temptations of the earth will have been completed, then, as foretold, the Lord will finally appear, like lightning flashing in the sky, the holy, most pure, and glorious God of all.
Michael Nostradamus was born December 14, 1503, in the French region of Provence. At the time, Europe was ravaged by the plague, and he traveled from one city to the next, gaining a high reputation for his compassionate treatment of victims of the plague. In time, he turned to astrology and metaphysics and discovered a special gift. He could see glimpses of the future. He noted these predictions in a book in cryptic code which deliberately obscured their meanings so he might avoid being persecuted by the Inquisition. In 1555, he completed The Centuries, a book of more than 900 predictions about the fate of France and the world. Many believe he is one of the greatest prophets of all time. Nostradamus correctly predicted that the Earth is round and moves around the sun, some 100 years before Galileo argued the same. He warned King Henry II never to joust because he correctly saw that the lance of his opponent would kill the king by skewering him through his golden helmet into the eye and the brain. He also saw the rise and fall of Napoleon, whom he wrote about by name and believed would be one of 3 antichrists. Nostradamus foresaw great turmoil in Russia and spoke of a revolution that would topple the Russian ruler and bring to power a man we now know as Lenin. He predicted that Lenin would be succeeded by Joseph Stalin after an intense power struggle, and saw the emergence of the Soviet bloc as a formidable threat to world peace. Looking 400 years into the future, Nostradamus was shocked to see the vision of a great world war.
Out of the steepest part of Western Europe, from poor people, A child will be born who with his tongue will seduce many people. The great squawker will be elected governor of the army. They shall pursue crosses of iron, topsy-turvy. Liberty will not be regained. It will be occupied by a black, proud, villainous, and unjust man. The greater part from the fields against Hister in an iron cage. The great one will be dragged.
Nostradamus referred to this man as the second Antichrist, and by the name Hister. We now know that he was referring to Hitler.
When the German child shall observe no law, the third premier, worse than ever did Nero, shall see the spilling of brave human blood.
Benito Mussolini was a flamboyant reincarnation.
The Roman power will be forcibly defeated. His great neighbor will follow in his footsteps. Secret and civil hate and conflicts will stop the buffoon's follies.
Nostradamus saw battles taking place in the sky, on metal ships, and underwater.
The invention of aimed flying fire will greatly trouble the besieged chief. There will be much sedition within. The abandoned will despair. There will be horrible tumult within the isles. Only the sounds of war will be heard. The assault of the plunderers so great that they join together in a great legion.
Even more astounding are his predictions of JFK's presidency and assassination.
The great man falls by the lightning in the day, an evil foretold by the postulant one. There will be another one falling in the night. These scourge being passed, the world shall be made smaller, peace for a long time. Everyone shall go safely by air, land, and sea. And then he will come to take himself to the corner of Lunar, where he will be taken and placed on a strange land.
These events are now a part of history. So what does Nostradamus know of our future? The most frightful and relevant prophecy is his prediction that by the end of this century there will be a great and final World War III in the area east of Palestine and Syria, which remarkably coincides with the Book of Revelations. This will happen after the establishment of Israel, which was founded in 1948.
When Saturn is in Aquarius and Sagittarius is ascendant, disease, famine, and death by war, as the century approaches renewal, a horrible war prepared in the West. A year later, pestilence comes.
Nostradamus saw that by the 1980s, the third Antichrist will be amongst us. He shall rise in the east and will seem like the Messiah at first, but will be responsible for nuclear war and the worst chapter in human history.
The Legion in the Marine Fleet will burn lime, oxides, sulfur, pitch. Unending fire will bring hidden death, horrible and fearful within the globes. The fleet will destroy the city at night. The city will burn, the enemy pleased. Near the new city, the sky will burn at 45 degrees. Immediately, a huge scattered flame leaps up. A great fire will be seen as the sun rises, noise and light extending far northward.
What will be left? After the end times have occurred, Nostradamus foresaw that the millennium will be a joyous return to the golden age.
New law will prevail in the new land, towards Syria, Judea, and Palestine. The great barbarian empire declines before the moon completes its cycle. Humane realm, an angelic offspring, causes lasting peace and unity. War subdues under its control. Peace is maintained for a long time.
With all of these chillingly accurate forecasts, how much can be true for our future? The Cold War has now come to an end. For 50 years, the superpowers fought each other in every corner of the globe. The wall came down, and Eastern Europe was set free. But a new threat has surfaced. Regional wars, terrorist acts by smaller countries and fanatical rebel groups who have amassed nuclear weapons through the black market, the internet, and secret international trades. Many countries are now turning to other, less complex weapons of mass destruction. They have developed biochemical weapons and new diseases for germ warfare. Anthrax, deadly viruses and gases which could annihilate entire cities. In many ways, the Persian Gulf War was a rehearsal for a greater war in the Middle East that many believe will be the true Armageddon. The Cold War may be over, but nuclear missiles are still among us. The United States is upgrading its arsenal just as its older missiles are destroyed under the terms of the New START Treaty. The New York Times estimated that even if all treaties are ratified and acted upon, the United States would still have over 2,000 nuclear warheads poised on Russian cities by the year 2008. Russia and its fluctuating tide of politics still has a formidable array of nuclear weapons itself. And there is China, which possesses over 1,000 nuclear missiles and bombs. China has built a superhighway through the Himalayas to Pakistan, a possible invasion route to Iran, Iraq, and Syria for its army of 200 million soldiers. With these weapons at the ready, will there ever be a time of peace? Where will the rapid advancement of modern science lead us? Will it improve our chances of survival or expedite our own Armageddon? The latest developments in gene therapy have raised the ethical question of whether man should play God.
Well, genes are the set of instructions that are in our cells that direct all of life. There are genes in human cells, there are genes in pine trees and mice. Every living thing has a set of instructions that are called genes. The idea behind gene therapy is to insert genetic information, that is, put genes in human cells to give a new set of instructions to those cells. You could think of using that then to correct an inherited genetic defect.
Tremendous possibilities exist.
If a doctor could go to the refrigerator and take out a vial that said, say, cystic fibrosis, and took a little shot up and gave a child a shot of the genes that would then go throughout the body, find the defective tissue that they're supposed to correct and just do their job. That would be the ideal that we would strive for. We're a long way from that at the moment. But I'm not convinced that we won't get there.
Besides curing genetic diseases, scientists may also discover genes which cause mathematical, musical, or athletic ability. What if our scientists create a serum for anti-aging? What would it mean for our food supply and limited resources?
Thinking about disease, and so you're thinking about love, and all these beautiful images are going through your mind.
Because that's when situations become awkward, and that's when things get difficult.
You're not thinking about, oh, well, you know, this person could have AIDS.
AIDS is one example of a plague of modern times that scientists still have not been able to cure. Cancer is another. But there are hopeful signs. The unlocking of the genetic code of DNA has led to fascinating new insights in our manipulation of cells and the replacement of bad genes with healthy ones. To better understand the workings of our body, scientists since Leonardo da Vinci have sought to document it. Da Vinci used drawings sketched from cadavers. Today, a group of scholars are working on a far more detailed image of the human body by combining digital technology with diagnostic medicine. 2 human cadavers which died of natural causes have been painstakingly sliced into 1-millimeter sections, then scanned into a computer. The result is a fascinating composite of the human body, which students and doctors can analyze through every layer down to the bone. For the first time, we are seeing lifelike internal and external images of a healthy body. The skeletal system, the muscles, the blood vessels, any part of these digital cadavers can be seen from any angle. Some experts believe that this is only the first step, and that 3D simulations of every aspect of human life will allow us to develop and test drugs to conquer the plagues of today and the diseases of tomorrow. Meanwhile, the same promise of a virtual reality is dissolving the boundaries between reality and imagination in other areas as well.
What sets NASA apart in this current climate is that we aren't looking at the mainstream applications of this global activity, which tend to be entertainment and video games. We're more looking to how to use this for scientific visualization. In particular, looking at the detailed environments of the planets, looking at computational fluid dynamics models of the airflow over a wing, that sort of thing.
This technology has already proven helpful for the military in Desert Storm. It is a powerful tool for visualizing spaces in design and architecture. One day, our buildings will be created entirely in cyberspace before the foundations have even been laid. Modern technology will help us organize information better, but the advent of 3D realism and video should also help our children to learn and understand better than with conventional educational methods.
Peter?
Hi.
Hi. Listen, I am totally stumped. I have this great unit on growth and nature, but I'm having a heck of a time really driving the point home.
What are you looking for exactly?
Well,
Apple Computer has developed a number of simulations that suggest how we may communicate with one another in the future.
This is Dr. Catherine Wheeler.
Good morning, Dr. Wheeler.
I'd like to get the results of the laser scan for Lowell Inlander and project them on the screen, please.
Technological advancements like these will improve our quality of life, provided they are used for the right means. An earthquake hits California.
It just shook and shook and shook, and the wall just opened up. It scared the, out of me. I ran to my bed and popped on it, grabbed a hold of it, and held on. That's all I could do.
For many, a major earthquake like this could indicate the coming of Armageddon. theory that the Earth is connected by a series of tectonic plates means that a quake in one area will cause disaster in another. Prophecies from Egypt, the Mayans, and the Bible foretold that the apocalypse would be accompanied by massive eruptions of volcanoes. Mount St. Helens may have reawakened at least 15 other volcanoes in the Ring of Fire in the Pacific Northwest. Can Pompeii happen again? 26,000 died by ash and molten lava in 1883 in Indonesia. A new and devastating eruption today, close to major centers of population, could wipe out millions in the span of a day. What is the condition of our planet? How has pollution of our cities, our oceans, and our air affected our ecosystem? How long can our planet suffer the combined effects of the depletion of resources and the accumulating piles of garbage and waste? Has pollution depleted the ozone to the point where we will suffocate in our own waste or develop cancers from too much sun?
All right, well, here's where we stand. Right now, the eyes just hit landfall about 120 miles south of Brownsville.
The weather phenomenon known as El Nino has come close to causing the catastrophic flooding and damage described in John's Revelations.
Hurricane Condition 2 is now in effect. Evacuate all housing now.
It started over here. The first building it hit, for those people that's ever been in Vietnam, it looks like a 122 rocket went right through the side of the wall. And from there, it jumped over and started eating up the back side of buildings, just literally tore them apart. There's nothing there but rubble now. I mean, it just tore them apart, kept going down, and started tearing up the nose docks out on the flight line.
And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth.
Cannot swords be turned to plowshares? Can we and all nations not live in peace? In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound.
Many believe that the only three things which could unite the entire planet are an alien invasion, the second coming of Christ, or the common threat of a massive asteroid bound for Earth, spelling doom for mankind regardless of color, creed, or race. In March of 1998, scientists predicted that in the year 2028, a mile-wide asteroid would bypass Earth by a mere 30,000 kilometers. A very close shot that could easily lead to a catastrophic collision. When the news was greeted with disbelief and shock throughout the world, other scientists quickly refuted the claim, saying that the margin was actually 600,000 kilometers, making the chance of a collision remote. How real is this threat? Each day, large meteorites form a large asteroid belt halfway between Mars and Jupiter, approach our planet. Most, but not all, burn up harmlessly in the Earth's atmosphere. Experts at NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab explain that while the chances of our being hit by a meteor are slim, the possibility cannot be outruled.
There is the threat of these objects actually smacking into the Earth. This Tutanus is several miles in diameter, and were it to actually strike the Earth, it would be lights out.
Because of their appearing essentially out of the blue with no warning, these are more or less the stealth bombers of the solar system world. They're there if they are in a Earth approaching or Earth crossing orbit. They could be something very serious in terms of any type of mitigation. We would not have much lead time.
The surface of the moon is a vivid example of the scourge of meteor impacts. The Earth, too, was once pockmarked with craters, but tectonic shifts and growth have since erased these scars, except for a few. 5 million years ago, a meteor struck what is now the Yucatan Peninsula, creating a crater so vast that its radius spanned 1,000 miles, and tidal waves reached as far as the islands in the Aegean. The smoke and fire resulting from the explosion extinguished all life, including the dinosaurs. A similar impact occurred in Arizona, leaving what is today the most intact example of a meteor crater on Earth. One of the most powerful but least known incidents may have occurred as recently as 1917 in a remote part of Siberia. Survivors reported seeing a bright streak in the sky, which arced across the horizon, then changed directions before crashing into a forest on the outskirts of Tunguska. The destruction was strikingly similar to what took place in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But Tunguska was 40 years earlier than the first atomic bomb explosion and 2,000 times worse. Even to this day, electromagnetic scales still register abnormally high radiation in Tunguska. Since there is no evidence of a crater, scholars believe that the meteor burned up in the atmosphere. In recent years, we witnessed the spectacular appearance of a group of comet fragments known as Schumacher-Levy and Hale-Bopp. They came close to our atmosphere, but their trajectory ultimately led them on a collision course to Jupiter. Despite Jupiter's giant size, the impact created huge explosions which visibly changed the surface of the planet. Schumacher-Levy opened the eyes of the world that the danger of a catastrophic impact was not the stuff of prehistoric times or ancient legends. It could happen today. NASA has spent millions on an early warning system, using satellites to monitor the universe. One example is its NEAT program.
The purpose of the NEAR mission is to go study an asteroid. Why do we need to study an asteroid? Asteroids are considered to be parts of other bodies where they came from, and they relate eventually to the origin of the solar system.
They're extremely interesting scientifically in the sense that they represent the leftover bits and pieces from the early solar system formation process. So if you want to study our origins, you want to study asteroids that get very close to the Earth.
So NEAR will be launched in an orbit that will take it to the asteroid 433 Eros, and it will spend there almost a year orbiting this body while we study it, both from the surface point of view as well as from the interior point of view.
Tutanus is a minor planet or an asteroid. It's a very small asteroid that gets close to the Earth periodically. It came close to the Earth in 1992. It'll be back in 2000, again in 2004.
What can we do? One theory holds that if a large meteor were on a trajectory towards Earth, a nuclear-armed satellite could be sent into space to destroy the intruder. Nuclear-powered spaceships could be another solution, whisking the meteor as far away from the Earth's atmosphere as possible. At the same time, space could provide mankind with an opportunity for colonization, providing a refuge from the ravages of war, pestilence, and conflict. Is the ultimate disaster avoidable? Perhaps our own beliefs and fears dictate what we will experience. What is this age of Aquarius that we are entering into now? Will it be a time of unprecedented peace, with mankind living in harmony with the Earth and the many species with which we share our home? Is there life after Armageddon? Modern-day psychic healer Edgar Cayce, often called the modern-day Nostradamus, can shed some light on the question. He is known for having given over 14,000 readings, which were analyzed to be at least 90% accurate. Like many ancient prophets, Cayce believed that drastic and sudden physical changes in the Earth's surface would occur near the end of the 20th century. A major upheaval would change the Earth as we know it. But he also foresaw a golden age after the end time. If Armageddon and the third Antichrist are upon us, perhaps it is a new spirituality that will help people find inner protection as they eagerly await the next millennium.
New law will prevail in the new land, towards Syria, Judea, and Palestine. Humane realm and angelic offspring causes lasting peace and unity.